Hello and welcome back to the English Talk community. I'm so excited to have you here today because I know exactly what you're going through. You understand English pretty well, you can read it, you get the grammar, but when it comes to speaking, there's this frustrating pause, right? That moment where you know what you want to say in your native language, but you have to mentally translate it before the words come out of your mouth. Today, we're talking about something that will change everything for you. How to train your brain to think in English naturally, so words come out smoothly without constant translation. And I promise you, by the end of this episode, you'll have practical tools that you can start using today. You know what? I completely understand that feeling of knowing you're capable of so much more in English, but feeling stuck in that translation loop. It's like having all the pieces of a puzzle but not being able to put them together quickly enough. But here's the thing, and this is really important. This is completely normal, and more importantly, it's absolutely fixable. Now, before we dive into the good stuff, I need a small favor from you. If you've ever felt frustrated by that mental translation process, hit that like button right now. It tells me you're ready to break free from this pattern. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now, because we're building a community of English learners who support each other, and I don't want you to miss any episode that could be the breakthrough moment for you. Ready? Let's dive into how your brain can naturally start thinking in English. And trust me, what I'm about to share with you is going to surprise you in the best way possible. Let me start by telling you something that might surprise you. The reason you're constantly translating in your head isn't because your English isn't good enough. It's because your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do. Think about it. For years, maybe decades, every time you learned a new English word or phrase, what did you do? You connected it to your native language, right? Your brain created these automatic pathways, and now it's just following the route it knows best. But here's what I want you to understand, and this is really important. Your brain is incredibly adaptable. It can learn new pathways, and once it does, English will start flowing naturally without that exhausting mental gymnastics you're doing right now. Now, I'm going to share something with you that most English teachers won't tell you, and it's going to change how you approach this whole process. The secret isn't about learning more vocabulary or studying more grammar. It's about rewiring how your brain processes English. And the best part? It's actually easier than you think. Here's the first thing you need to know. Your brain thinks in concepts and images, not in words. When you see a dog running in the park, your brain doesn't first think the word dog and then translate it. It recognizes the concept directly. This is exactly how native English speakers process language, and it's exactly what we're going to teach your brain to do. Let me give you a practical example that you can relate to. When you're hungry and you open your fridge, what happens in your mind? You don't think, I am hungry. Let me translate this to English. You just feel hungry and start looking for food. That direct connection between feeling and action is what we want to create with English. But I know what you're thinking right now. You're probably wondering, okay, this sounds great in theory, but how do I actually make this happen? And that's exactly what I'm going to show you. But first, let me explain why the traditional methods you've probably tried haven't worked. Most people try to force themselves to think in English by literally translating their thoughts. They'll think, I need to go to the store, and then try to think it in English. But this is still translation, just in a different direction. What we want is for your brain to naturally generate thoughts directly in English, especially in situations where English is your go-to language. Here's something that will blow your mind. Right now, while you're listening to me, your brain is processing my English words directly. You're not translating every word I say into your native language and then understanding it, are you? Of course not. That would be exhausting. Your brain is already capable of direct English processing. We just need to expand this ability to your speaking. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something I discovered through my own language learning journey. The reason you can understand English directly but struggle to speak it directly is because understanding and producing language use different neural pathways. It's like being able to recognize a song when you hear it, but struggling to sing it from memory. But here's the exciting part, and this is where the magic happens. Once you understand this difference, you can start training both pathways simultaneously. And when you do this right, something amazing happens. Your speaking becomes as natural as your understanding. I want you to think about this for a moment. Remember the last time you had a conversation in English and everything just flowed? Maybe it was when you were really engaged in a topic you're passionate about, or when you were relaxed and not thinking about your language skills. In that moment, what was different? You weren't translating, were you? You were directly expressing your thoughts and feelings. That natural flow you experienced, that's your brain's English thinking capacity showing up. It's already there, waiting for you. We just need to make it more consistent and accessible. Here's what most people don't realize, and this is crucial for your progress. Every time you successfully express something directly in English without translating, you're strengthening those neural pathways. It's like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. But I also want to acknowledge something important here. I know you've probably felt frustrated when you know exactly what you want to say, but the English words don't come out right. That pause, that search for words, it can make you feel self-conscious or even embarrassed. I want you to know that this is completely normal, and more importantly, it's temporary. The beautiful thing about what we're going to work on together is that it builds on what you already know. You're not starting from zero. You have vocabulary, you understand grammar intuitively, and you can process English when you hear it. We're just going to connect these skills in a new way. Now, I promised you practical tools, and I'm going to deliver on that promise. But before we get to the specific techniques, I need you to understand one more crucial concept, and this is going to be the foundation for everything else we discuss today. The crucial concept I want you to understand is this. Your brain learns patterns, not rules. And right now, your dominant pattern is translation. But we're going to create a new, stronger pattern that bypasses translation entirely. Let me show you how this works with a real situation you've probably experienced. Imagine you're at a coffee shop and you want to order your usual drink. If you're in translation mode, your brain does this. You think about what you want in your native language, then convert it to English, then speak. But what if, instead, you could train your brain to directly associate the feeling of wanting coffee with the English phrase, "I'll have my usual, please"? This is exactly what happens when you're really comfortable with certain phrases in English. Think about expressions like, "How are you?" or "Thank you so much." You don't translate these anymore, do you? They just come out naturally because you've used them so many times that your brain has created a direct pathway. Now, here's where it gets really practical, and this is something you can start doing today. The key is to expand this natural response system to more areas of your life, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. The first technique is what I call English bubbles. These are specific times and situations where you commit to thinking only in English. But here's the important part. You start small. Maybe it's just when you're making breakfast, or during your commute, or while you're walking your dog. The key is consistency, not duration. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you choose your morning routine as your English bubble. Instead of thinking, "I need to brush my teeth" in your native language, you train yourself to think, "Time to brush my teeth" directly in English. At first, this might feel forced or artificial, but remember, you're creating new neural pathways. But here's what makes this technique really powerful, and this is something most people miss. You don't just think the words, you connect them to the physical actions and emotions you're experiencing. When you're feeling hungry and making breakfast, you think, "I'm really hungry right now," while actually feeling that hunger. This creates a much stronger connection in your brain. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But what if I don't know how to say something in English during my English bubble? And this is a great question because it happens to everyone. Here's what you do, and this is really important. You don't break the bubble to translate. Instead, you find a simpler way to express the same idea in English. For example, if you can't remember the word refrigerator, you think cold box or where I keep my food cold. This might sound silly, but it's actually brilliant because you're training your brain to work within English, to be creative with the language you have, instead of always reaching for translation as a crutch. Let me share another powerful technique that has helped thousands of English learners, and you can start using it immediately. It's called English narration, and it works like magic. Here's how you do it. Throughout your day, you narrate your actions in English, but in a very simple, natural way. Instead of complex sentences, you use simple present tense. I'm opening the door. I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm looking for my keys. This might feel weird at first, but it's actually incredibly powerful because you're creating constant opportunities for your brain to practice direct English thinking. The beautiful thing about English narration is that it works with any level of English. If you're more advanced, you can add emotions and details. I'm feeling really motivated today. I'm choosing the blue shirt because it makes me feel confident. If you're still building vocabulary, you keep it simple. I'm eating breakfast. This tastes good. Now, here's something really important that I want you to understand. When you're practicing these techniques, your brain might resist at first. You might catch yourself slipping back into translation mode, and that's completely normal. Don't judge yourself for it. Instead, gently redirect your attention back to English thinking. Think of it like learning to drive. At first, you had to consciously think about every action. Check mirrors, signal, brake slowly. But now, if you're an experienced driver, these actions happen automatically. Your brain learned the pattern so well that it became natural. The same thing will happen with English thinking. Let me give you another practical situation where you can apply this. When you're watching English content, like movies or videos, instead of just passively listening, try to predict what the characters might say next. This engages your brain in active English thinking rather than passive understanding. But here's a technique that really accelerates the process, and I learned this from observing how children naturally acquire language. When you're in English thinking mode, don't worry about being grammatically perfect. Focus on communicating the idea, even if it's not exactly how a native speaker would say it. For instance, if you're thinking about being late for a meeting, instead of translating the complex sentence from your native language, you might think, "Oh no, meeting starts soon. I need to hurry." Is this perfect grammar? Maybe not. But is your brain thinking directly in English? Absolutely. This approach does something incredible for your confidence. Instead of feeling like you need to be perfect before you can think in English, you realize that communication is more important than perfection. And guess what happens when you release that pressure? Your English actually becomes more natural and fluent. Here's something else I want you to try. And this one is particularly effective for people who love learning languages. Start having conversations with yourself in English. I know it sounds funny, but it works amazingly well. Let me tell you about these self-conversations, because they're probably one of the most underestimated tools for developing natural English thinking. When you talk to yourself in English, you create a safe space where there's no judgment, no pressure, and no fear of making mistakes. It's just you, practicing the flow of English thoughts. You can start these conversations anywhere. Maybe you're deciding what to wear, and instead of that internal debate happening in your native language, you have it in English. Should I wear the red sweater or the blue one? It's a bit cold today, so maybe the red one is better. Yes, that's a good choice. What makes this so powerful is that you're practicing real decision-making in English, not just memorizing phrases. Your brain starts to associate English with actual thinking processes, not just with formal learning situations. But here's where many people get stuck, and I want to address this directly. because it might be exactly what you're experiencing right now. You might be thinking, this all sounds great, but what about when I'm in an actual conversation with other people? I still freeze up and go back to translating. I completely understand this, and I want you to know that this is the most common challenge. The pressure of real-time conversation can make your brain default back to its old patterns. But here's the secret that changes everything. You don't need to transform overnight in conversations. You can apply these techniques gradually, even in social situations. Start with responses you're already comfortable with. When someone asks, "How are you?" instead of translating your complex feelings, think directly in English. "I'm doing well. Thanks." When someone says something funny, instead of translating your reaction, think, "That's hilarious," or "That made me laugh." The key is to identify these small moments where you can practice direct English thinking, even within longer conversations where you might still translate some parts. Every time you successfully respond without translating, you're building confidence and strengthening those neural pathways. Now, let me share something that will help you tremendously with conversation confidence. Most English learners think they need to understand and respond to everything immediately. But here's what native speakers actually do. They buy themselves thinking time with natural phrases. Instead of panicking when you need a moment to think, you can say things like, "That's interesting. Let me think about that." Or, "You know what? That's a great question." These phrases give your brain time to access English directly, rather than rushing into translation mode. Here's another conversation strategy that works beautifully. When you don't know exactly how to express something complex, ask for help in English rather than giving up. Say something like, "I'm trying to think of how to explain this." Or, "What's the word when you feel happy and sad at the same time?" This keeps you in English mode and often leads to great learning moments. Let me tell you about something called English emotional connections. And this technique is incredibly powerful for making English thinking feel natural. Instead of just practicing with neutral topics, start connecting English to your emotions and personal experiences. When you're feeling happy, think, "I feel so good right now" in English while actually experiencing that happiness. When you're frustrated about traffic, think, "This is so annoying," while feeling that frustration. When you see something beautiful, think, "Wow, that's gorgeous," while experiencing that appreciation. This emotional connection is crucial because it makes English feel like your language, not just a foreign tool you use occasionally. Your brain starts to see English as a natural way to express your inner world, not just something you do in formal situations. Here's a practical exercise you can do every single day, and it takes just 5 minutes. Before you go to sleep, review your day mentally, but do it entirely in English. Not complex storytelling, just simple reflection. Today was a good day. I had lunch with my friend. We talked about movies. I enjoyed that conversation. What makes this exercise so effective is that you're processing real experiences and emotions in English. Your brain starts to see English as a natural way to make sense of your life, not just as a subject you study. Now, I want to address something that might be holding you back, and I see this with so many English learners. You might be worried that if you think in simple English, you're not progressing or challenging yourself enough. But here's the truth. Simple, direct English thinking is exactly how you build the foundation for more complex expression. Native speakers don't think in complicated sentences all the time. Most of our internal dialogue is actually quite simple and direct. "I'm hungry. Where should I eat? That place looks good. Let me go there." Building this natural, simple flow is what leads to fluency, not trying to think in complex grammar structures. Here's something else that will accelerate your progress significantly. Start consuming English content not just for entertainment, but as models for thinking patterns. When you watch English videos or listen to podcasts, pay attention to how speakers express simple ideas. Notice their natural phrases, their thinking patterns, their way of connecting ideas. Then, try to adopt some of these patterns in your own English thinking. If you hear someone say, I've been wondering about that, and it feels natural to you. Start using that phrase in your internal English dialogue when you're curious about something. But remember, and this is really important, the goal isn't to copy exactly how others think. It's to develop your own natural English thinking voice. Just like your personality shines through when you speak your native language, your personality should shine through your English thinking too. The most important thing I want you to understand about this whole process is that it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. Every moment you spend thinking directly in English, no matter how simple or imperfect, is building your fluency foundation. So let's bring everything together, because I want to make sure you leave this episode with a clear action plan that you can start implementing today. Remember when I talked about your brain creating automatic pathways through years of translation? Well, now you understand that you can create new pathways that bypass translation entirely. Those English bubbles I mentioned, where you commit to thinking only in English during specific activities, that's your starting point. Pick one small part of your day, maybe your morning coffee routine, and make it your first English thinking zone. The English narration technique, where you simply describe your actions throughout the day, this builds the habit of direct English processing. And those self-conversations we discussed, they give you that safe space to practice without any pressure or judgment. When it comes to real conversations, remember that you don't need to transform everything overnight. Start with those comfortable responses you already know, and gradually expand from there. Use those thinking time phrases when you need a moment, and don't be afraid to ask for help in English rather than giving up. Most importantly, connect English to your emotions and real experiences. When you feel happy, frustrated, excited, or curious, express those feelings directly in English while you're experiencing them. Here's your call to action, and this is really important. I want you to choose just one technique from today's episode and commit to practicing it for the next 7 days. Just one. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick the technique that resonated most with you. Maybe it's the English bubbles. Maybe it's the narration, and practice it consistently. After 7 days, come back and let me know in the comments how it felt. Did you notice your brain starting to think more directly in English? I'd love to hear about your experience. If this episode helped you understand how to train your brain for natural English thinking, please share it with someone who's also working on their fluency. Together, we're building a community of confident English speakers. Until next time, keep thinking in English.